3 of the LEC, Misfits defeated Fnatic, and they did so in dominating fashion, opening up the game with a 5,000 goal lead at 15 minutes. Many question marks surrounded Fnatic's draft due to an over-reliance on scaling. Misfits, on the other hand, had a lot of early game elements which allowed them to push for leads as they had lane priority. Today, we're going to take a look at lane priority and why it's important. It's time to level up. Before we dive into Fnatic's game, let's talk about lane priority. Ultimately, lane priority comes from a champion being able to push a minion wave faster than the opposing champion. This can be done through a number of ways. A champion could threaten to kill their enemy, generating kill pressure and forcing their opponent to play defensively. Another way is that a champion has more wave clear than their opponent, so you are consistently pushed under your tower. The final way is jungle presence. Having a jungler spend time, vision, and resources into assisting a lane can force the opponent to play more defensively at the risk of being outnumbered. Let's now look at champion select. Fnatic limit the number of available AD carries by banning Lucian and Draven. They then proceed to pick Kai'Sa and Sion. Misfits respond with Alistar and Kalista, with Fnatic rounding out with a Morgana to end Phase 1. With Morgana, Fnatic now have double ranged in the bot lane. This grants them priority in the early levels, as Tormented Soil can help them push alongside Kai'Sa's Icathian Rain. This shifts once Kalista and Alistar get enough levels that grant them kill pressure, and this is especially noticeable when they get their ultimates. Sion is a flexible pick that is capable of going even with Urgot. So far, things look fine for Fnatic. In the second phase, however, Fnatic decide to take Zac, one of the weakest early game junglers. One of his main early game weaknesses comes from his terrible dueling. Misfits recognize this and lock in Olaf, a strong early game jungler that clears camps quickly and duels extremely well. They pair the Olaf with LeBlanc, who provides huge kill pressure in the laning phase due to her ethereal chains being terrific for gank assists. While she doesn't have the best wave clear early on, the threat of a kill can zone opponents, allowing her to get priority in the lane. Fnatic then decide to double down on scaling, last picking Kassadin. His magic damage shield from Null Sphere can help him trade with LeBlanc, but he has very low wave clear, which means he'll be stuck under his tower for the majority of the early game. As a result of this draft, on paper, Misfits is guaranteed lane priority in mid lane. Top lane should be relatively even, however Urgot has a slight advantage since he's a ranged champion and can harass the Sion away from the wave, allowing Urgot to push more regularly. As mentioned before, bot lane should be Fnatic favoured early on. At level 1, and even knowing they're walking over vision, Misfits invade the top side of the jungle and Maxwell takes the enemy Raptors and red buff. Broxah simply yields and moves to his bottom side, as there's little he and his laners can do with a weaker level 1. Maxwell then immediately runs down to his own red buff to secure it, which prevents Broxah from trying to get it, as Zac is much weaker than Olaf at this stage of the game. Maxwell ends up taking almost 3 quadrants of the jungle, while Broxah only had access to 5 camps. At 4 minutes and 10 seconds into the game, Misfits have generated a 1000 gold advantage from their leads in the mid, top, and jungle. The result of the mid matchup alongside a good early game plan to punish the scaling picks justifies the leads in the mid and the jungle. Bot lane is now level 3, and with all 3 spells, Alistar can break Morgana's Black Shield with sufficient magic damage, so Fnatic opt to play safer. This allows Gorilla to move up and place a ward at Gromp, giving them information whenever Broxah moves to attempt a gank. In addition, Fnatic can't move past the river, so they can never get information on Maxwell, which forces them to play defensively. At 7 minutes and 50 seconds into the game, we see a very good example of how to translate lane priority into advantages. Misfits find Broxah clearing the bottom scuttle, and immediately make a move for him, forcing him to flash in order to survive. Misfits then threaten to dive the Fnatic bot lane. They are forced away from their turret as they don't want to die, but just forcing them away allows Misfits to deny experience and gold. There's little that Fnatic can do to answer this pressure, as their jungler is still only level 5, while Kassadin is also stuck under his turret and cannot follow, guaranteeing a numbers advantage for Misfits. During this extended period, Featherman constantly shoves his wave and moves to the bot side of the map. This denies the first blue buff from Kassadin, allowing them to keep up the pressure and continuously deny experience and gold from Fnatic, giving Misfits a 2,200 gold lead at only 10 minutes. The examples discussed demonstrated how you can utilize lane priority to gain advantages, but I also wanted to highlight the risk of having no priority anywhere on the map. The game can snowball quickly out of your control, and there are few options for you to do anything. Therefore, here are a few takeaways for you to remember. In your solo queue games, you want to work towards having a balance. If you want to play, say, with a scaling jungler like Karthus, make sure you have strong laners so they can help you more readily if you're in danger. Perhaps you want to play a scaling AD like Vayne. Make sure you have a strong mid or top laner so that you are still keeping the overall team gold even. Remember that if an enemy roams from their lane to yours, your ally might not always be able to follow. Keep an eye on the minimap for where your teammates have priority, and show respect to the possibility of your enemies utilizing that. Remember to work together. You will notice that Misfits always helped each other when trying to make a play. When Maxlor wanted to invade, his laners pushed and joined him so they could provide support. Priority and pressure are best maximized when working with your teammates. Lastly, if you're playing a jungler, remember to look at the state of your lanes before committing to a fight or an invade. If your laners don't have priority, that likely means that the opponent will be able to collapse before your allies, and this is definitely not your teammates' fault. I hope this helped you understand